Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we are talking about Newcastle United. We are talking about Eddie Howe and 3 players that he should sign for his side to take them to the next level next season, whether that be competing in the Champions League or once again trying to finish in the top 4 in the Premier League. Newcastle need to kick on once again in their rebuild. Now, I have already recorded this video. I had it fully edited, ready to upload last week, and then Newcastle went and signed Tonali, or they're about to sign him at the time of recording. So it kind of threw it all up in the air. However, we digress, we move on, and we come up with different targets. So before we look at the targets that Newcastle need this season or this summer, we need to look at what they've done so well in the past, because when recruiting new players, it's important, yes, that you upgrade the team, you evolve the team and bring different dynamics to a team, but you also need to make sure that you don't lose out on what you've done so well last season. So what did they do so well last season? Well, one of the big things that they've done really well is that they were a team cohesive unit. Yes, there's a lot of technical quality on the pitch as well, but this team really pulls together. There's a lot of physicality in the team. They're very good in their duels. They're very good on the first ball, the second ball, and even the third ball. They're very good pressing high as a unit, but they're also very good at sitting in the mid block, shuffling across and closing gaps, and also a low block when they need to as well. This is a team which on the ball does things quick, fast, get the ball forward, hurt the opposition nice and quickly, and then defensively they're very compact. Now, in terms of on the ball, their kind of average possession shape looks something a little bit like this. They start in a 4-3-3 formation. Then Dan Burn at left back will kind of hold his position on the left-hand side, forming a back 3 with Botman and Shah. This will allow Trippier to push forward alongside Almiron. And then you get a shape which looks a little bit like something a bit like this, with Almiron sort of tucking in from the right hand side, with Trippier providing the width. On the left hand side, it's a slightly different dynamic. Sometimes the winger will be wide and the midfielder inside, and sometimes it will be something a little bit unorthodox, with it being the other way around like this. Now, in terms of personnel, it can change with St. Joel Linton in the team and also Isak as well. But this is kind of the rough blueprint of what Newcastle have done really well this season. So they need to find players, kind of moving forward, who can play some of these roles, who kind of bring some of the same attributes, but also add something different to the team. And for Newcastle in particular, I think that will be really important, because what will happen next season is that teams will start to realise that if we sit a little bit deeper against them, kind of restrict some of the spaces in behind us, maybe Newcastle won't be able to break us down as well with this current 11. So Newcastle need to keep the physicality, they need to keep the ability to win a lot of duels, they need to keep that in their team, and also that hard-working nature. But also they need to add something on the ball as well. In possession, a bit more quality, maybe a bit of speed in the defence so that they can play a high line, but then also that bit of stardust, that gold dust in the final third. So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, JerseyFifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFIFA for 10% off when you order. Now, as I have said already, Newcastle have already made one change to the team, with Tonali signing for the club with a big old fee, which is going to affect how we look at other players as well, because, you know, whilst I've got rich owners Newcastle, you're still limited to the amount of money that you can spend, so it will reduce the budget in other areas. But Tonali alongside Guimaraes, that's going to be really interesting to see how that midfield works. I still think it will be Willock that forms the other position. So I think this will be Newcastle's midfield moving forward. So we need to address the other areas of the pitch. And the first area I want to address is the right centre-back position. Now at left centre-back I think Botman is a very good young defender, but Schär at right centre-back I think is limited with his ceiling. And I think if Newcastle next season are going to have to slowly adapt and evolve to have a bit more possession, then I think they need someone who firstly is a bit better on the ball, a bit more progressive, a bit more technical, a bit better with his passing, but also someone who really has the ability to sustain that high press next season and cover the space in behind them. I think Newcastle needs someone for that position. So they need physicality, someone who's good in the air, good in their duels, but also very good on the ball and got some good recovery pace. Now, who is the player that I would suggest for this position? So the player that I would suggest for this position is Joe Gomez, the Liverpool and England defender. Now, immediately some people might roll their eyes at this and say, no thank you, he weren't very good last season. But I think it's important that we don't just look at last season, because that Liverpool team was a mess, and the defensive structure, the way in which they put pressure on the ball, or in fact didn't, was a mess, and any centre-back would have struggled in that system. We saw it with Virgil van Dijk. So it's important not to judge Joe Gomez too harshly. But I think in terms of profile, he brings a lot of the things which Newcastle would need for this team. He brings good aerial ability, he ranks very well. If you look at his FBref report for his aerial ability, he ranks very well, which would be important in this team. We also know that he's nice and quick, so he can cover a lot of ground, and he is used to playing in a high line, so that would suit him as well. and actually this defensive setup is better than the one at Liverpool, so he would improve in that department. But also, importantly, on the ball, he brings a real quality. He's very good at moving the ball forward, he can step out of the defence with the ball, and also play progressive passes through the lines. I think this would be a real upgrade. With talks also that Liverpool want to ship Joe Gomez off so that they can kind of bring in a different centre-back, Joe Gomez might be available for a bit more of an affordable price, which will be important, again, with signings like Tonali coming into the club. I really like the look of Joe Gomez and his fit in this team. I think it really could work. Now, like I've said already, people will judge him a little bit and critique him, but I think that would have been the case for a lot of these Newcastle players. However, working under Eddie Howe gets something out of them. You look at Almiron last season. Before last season, no one was talking about Almiron. Then he had that storming start to the year and really impressed. That was all because of Eddie Howe. He's got a very good track record of improving players, especially at Newcastle. And I genuinely think Joe Gomez could be the next player which he does that with. I think there's a very, very good player in there, which just needs the game time. He needs to avoid injury, granted. But I think given game time in a better defensive setup, where he can also express himself on the ball, I think we could see him becoming a really good player in this Newcastle team. Now, the other area where I would like to upgrade is at left back, and there's a few reasons for that. One of the reasons is that, again, as this team evolves, they need to have different dynamics in the side. Dan Burn currently sits very deep. He doesn't really venture forward too often. So Newcastle need a left back which can push forward down the left hand side. However, at the same time, they don't want to kind of lose their identity, which is the left back being tucked in. So they also need a left back which can hold a deeper position. Someone who can push forward, but also hold a deeper position when needed. They also need someone who is a bit more technical, a bit better on the ball, in case teams try and press Newcastle high next season. And also someone which just brings better passing, better progressive ability on the ball, an upgrade all round on Dan Burn. Don't get me wrong, Dan Burn will still be a really good squad option next season, as he can play a couple of different positions. But someone new at left back who can move the ball forward, be a bit more technical, but also bring the defensive side to the game. Now, for this position, we are going to stick in the Premier League, and I am going to go for Cucurella from Chelsea. Now, this is a link which has been developing over the past couple of weeks, and I actually made my video suggesting him before we even saw the transfer news. I genuinely think this could be quite a nice fit. Now, again, people will look at last season and say, well, it didn't really work for him, and maybe he's just not good enough, basically. But there's a reason that Manchester City and Chelsea wanted him last summer, and that is because he's a very good technical footballer. A very, very good technical footballer. Very good on the ball, very good with his passing, which is something that Newcastle need. But importantly, he is used to playing this kind of tucked-in position from the left-hand side, because he's a very versatile player. Yes, he can be as a wing-back or an attacking full-back, but we've also seen him play at left centre-back in a back three. This position here, which Newcastle use, kind of is a hybrid of both of those things, a full-back but also a left centre-back in a back three. So this could really suit him, kind of his profile as a player. In terms of what he brings on the ball, he's very technically secure, he's a very good progressive passer, and again, he would be someone that brings something a little bit different to this Newcastle team. Once again, they need to evolve moving forward. Cucurella could bring them something a little bit different, and one of those things is the ability to occasionally push forward. Now, I don't think Newcastle should do this all the time because it will leave them vulnerable, and again, they need to keep their principles from last season. But the ability to occasionally push forward and offer something a little bit different in the final third is something which Cucurella would bring. And again, he might be affordable. We know that Chelsea are trying to ship off a load of their players which they bought last season and didn't really work. Cucurella might be one of those which is available, with Ben Chilwell seemingly Chelsea's first choice left back. Cucurella in this Newcastle team, again working with Eddie Howe, someone who again is good at improving players, it could be a nice little link up. Again, I think he becomes more affordable if Chelsea are kind of willing to let him go or even looking to actively let him go. I think it would be a good signing. He brings progressive ability, he brings technical ability, but he is also a decent defender as well, and I think he has become a bit underrated in that department. Is he perfect? No, but I think working under Eddie Howe, he could become a much better player. So again, we are improving this defence and almost modernising it and helping Newcastle to transition into what they need to become. So the last area of the pitch that we need to address is in the attack, and this one's a little bit more tricky because I'm just not sure how Newcastle will build their attack next season. St Maximin is still at the club at the time of recording, Callum Wilson ended the season in brilliant form, but you also have the mega money move of Isak last summer, and we all know how good Isak is. I'm a big fan of him. Those that have watched the channel a lot before last year would have known how highly I rated him. A very good young player. Now he could be on the left wing, it could be St Max on the left wing, Isak could be up front, we just don't know at the moment. But I think the left hand side is kind of managed between those two players. The right hand side, however, is where I think you can upgrade the team a little bit. because Almiron for me just isn't quite good enough. Now, yes, he done very well last season. He's improved under Eddie Howe, scored a lot of goals in the first half of last season, but he plateaued, he slowed down and went back to old habits a little bit. I think Newcastle, if they want to compete in the Champions League in particular, need that little bit of quality in this position. Now, what does this player need? Well, this player needs an ability to move wide right, because Trippier won't always be there, but more frequently moving inside the pitch into these areas where they need to be a real creative player. They also need to be an occasional goal scorer, as we saw with Almiron last season, but importantly off the ball they have to be someone which is willing to work hard, press, track back, do all of that work as well. That is what really, is the identity of this Newcastle team. They have to keep that. Yes, try and upgrade a more creative player, but they have to keep that hard-working nature in the team. It's quite a difficult thing to do. However, there is a club where you go if you want high-pressing players, and especially if they've got a young star. That is RB Leipzig, and it is Szoboszlai. The Hungarian is a wonder kid, an absolutely brilliant talent, which I think by now everyone in the world of football knows about him. For me, he could be perfect for this role. Now, he would be a bit more of an expensive signing, which is why we've gone a little bit cheaper in the defence. But Szoboszlai in this position on the right-hand side, tucking into midfield, could be absolutely incredible. Now, to kind of get the boring stuff out of the way, off the ball, Szoboszlai is brilliant. Like I said, playing for RB Leipzig, he works hard, he presses high, he's used to tracking back. The Red Bull teams have that high pressing ethos, they all do it. Szoboszlai would be more than happy to come into this Eddie Howe team and press opposition players. But more importantly, on the ball, he's just absolutely phenomenal. He is that gold dust, that stardust in the team which Newcastle currently lack outside of Bruno Guimaraes. Szoboszlai is genuinely top quality. He's a really good young player in there who could go to the top of the game. In terms of cutting into this position, he offers so much from this area. He offers creativity, end product in the final third, and also he has one hell of a strike on him, so expect the occasional wonder goal from outside of the penalty area. The way in which he strikes the ball is quite scary at times. It's very consistent and very effective. But he can also dribble and carry the ball as well, so he would be happy to occasionally peel to this right hand side. But like I said, the important thing is that he keeps that defensive work rate as well. We all know about his attacking side of the game. He's a wonderful player. And I mean, even in the future, he could be moved to more of a midfield position. If you want to stick with Almiron on the right wing, you could even do something like this with Szoboszlai in the midfield, from where you arguably get an even better player. He's a versatile player which Eddie Howe will value in his squad, and it leaves you with a very nice looking team which is balanced, it's got defensive security, it's got brilliant flair and creativity in the attack. All round, it looks like a really nice team. So those are the 3 players that I would be signing if I was Eddie Howe at Newcastle, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Are these the positions that need addressing? And if so, are these the right profiles and the right players to take up those positions moving forward into next season? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But apart from that, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.